Thank you, everyone, for having me here. Good morning, I guess, in Indonesia. Good afternoon in Australia, and anywhere else in the world. Good morning, afternoon, or good evening. And thank you to Ed Heroes and the Australian chapter, and also Farhanis for inviting me to participate today. Very encouraging to see. I'm very excited to see what the work that Ed Heroes is doing, and now it's expanding to other regions of the world. So it's a really good movement that you're working on. So congratulations to everyone on that. Just a bit of background about myself. My name is Lucero. I am based in Sydney, Australia. I'm a father of 3 boys, school boys, and I'm a technologist by heart, heavily involved in the financial services space. I'm also an entrepreneur, and I've done quite a lot of things with technology in financial services and to some extent education, which I do have a bit of a soft spot for. So that's a bit of me on background, and I think I have about 5 to 10 minutes to talk about digital competencies. And I think we just saw in the previous presentation the importance of the skills in this digital world. And we just went through 2 years pandemic shock, and how everyone in around the world had to be exposed to new ways of doing things, and the importance of understanding what digital skills are, digital competences are. We talk about it, we read about it, but do we understand what it means? And we as parents, as educators, as teachers, as part of society, need to understand what actually digital competency means. So I thought I'd put together a couple slides. There's 4 points here that we're going to delve into. One is about talking about the importance of the digital competencies. Then we go, what does it actually mean to be digitally competent? And from a different context, from a global context, and also from an Australian context, because Australia is doing some fancy things on that front. And then we'll look at a bit of emerging trends, and some of these emerging trends, the majority of these emerging trends are to do with technology underpinning it. So again, something that the reason why as citizens we need to understand these competencies. And so we'll go into it. So, but before I go into detail, just if we can go to slide number 1, please. Can we flip to slide number 1? Excellent, thanks. So I just wanted to give you a bit of snapshot of some of the stats out there in the world right now. Right now in the world, it is estimated that we have about 720 million students in year 8 to 12, which are now studying online. That's about 2/3 of those students online are exposed to risks like cyber risks, for example. And we were talking about social media before in the previous presentation as well, how important it is to understand the context and understand what you're doing and who you're talking to, and be smart about the information that you're receiving. So it is important that our young people build that crucial digital life skill sets, which is required, to have opportunities in the future to get a job and support. So just to understand that amount of people students that are now online, and how they need to be equipped to be able to perform efficiently. Okay. So if we look at the graph on the left, that's a couple of years back. That's when the pandemic started, and it's kind of the beginning of it. It's about March, February, March 2020, and you can see the jump of how many students we had to go online around the world. So that's 1.3 billion. If you cannot see it, that's billion with a B. So that's just about 20% of the global population that went online, basically because of the pandemic and when everything got shut down. And taking China as an example, 10 Tencent Classroom. If you don't not familiar with Tencent, think of Google in America or Europe. Tencent is the Google in China, and they have very similar technology, but Tencent was extensively used across China. And there was a point where 730,000 students, or approximately 81% of students of China from year K to 12, attended the classes via online using the Tencent technology. So again, that gives you a bit of a snapshot of the importance of understanding what the digital competencies are. So if we move to the next slide, please. So just to go back a bit and say, what is it and what do we mean by digital competencies? I mean, digital competencies, we have different competencies, right? There's communications in your mother tongue, there's learning to learn, social and civic competencies, but there's digital competencies. And these are a way of mastering the basic digital literacy skills that should enable us to become lifelong learners. Our ability to search for information, to evaluate sources, to use critical thinking to assess information gives us the ability to become lifelong learners using digital tools. So what we're looking at on the screen here is a framework of what a digital competency means. And this is from a global context. The next slide we look at a bit later from an Australian context. But basically, when you look at that, it's 5 areas, right? When we think about technology, look at 5 areas. There's information. There's 3 core ones on the left there of the graph. There's information, communication, and content creation. And there's also the safety part of the using technology and the problem-solving skill sets. So that's the areas that's the framework that gives us the ability for us to understand what a competency is. So in the terms of information, for example, a competency within the information space, we can see it's slide number 1.1.1. Browsing, searching, and filtering information is a simple asset and a skill set and competency. Evaluating that information, again, if you're in social media, you need to evaluate the information you're receiving. Managing information and digital content that you're receiving. Same thing. The next area is communication, interacting, sharing, collaborating, and digital identity online. How do you manage that? How do you protect that? The next one is content creation, and that's developing about writing content into it and programming skill sets. You might not be into programming, but programming is one of those competencies within the context of digital competence. And the 4th one is the safety part of it, and protecting our devices, protecting our personal data and the privacy, and protecting the health and well-being and the environment around us, and the problem solving as well. So this is a framework from a global context. So what I want to do now is move a bit closer to home, which is Australia. And so the next slide, if we please move to the next slide. Excellent. So in Australia, we have a government entity called ACARA, which means the Australian Curriculum Assessment and Reporting Authority, which is the government authority responsible for the development of a national curriculum, a national assessment program, the data collection and reporting, and supports the learning of Australian students. So they recently, given the fact of the pandemic and so many challenges that we had as parents and educators, getting online and learning how to do things online and teaching, helping our kids learn, they undertook a review of this whole digital literacy capability. And they came up with this framework, which kind of, if you look at it, kind of adapts to the main one that we just saw before. And so you have basically in the center is the digital literacy as an area that is a continuum learning scenario. And through that, you have your elements or your areas, if you call it, if you look at the table on the right. You have the participating digital safety and well-being, communicating and collaborating, in investigating, creating, and managing and operating, very similar to what you saw above, but this is the Australian version of it. And then the sub-elements of it, again, managing the well-being of the students online and so forth. So this is the capabilities we need to instill in our kids. With these capabilities, we want our school system in promoting students when they educate our kids. This is, we as parents need to understand this. Our students need to learn this. So we as a community need to understand all this. So it's important that we all cooperate and we all part of this change that we are going through. So now we're going to quickly move to the some of the emerging trends that are happening in education in the last couple of years, and that's based. Some of these have an impact on the pandemic. Some of those don't. So they come from, I guess, this new ways of doing things. So if we can move to the next slide, please. I think I'm just checking the time. We have a couple more minutes. So these are the trends that we've seen in education. This is at a global context. It's not Australian, but I think this is a nice survey that was done by Google Education across the world, because I think they got the power to go across different regions of the world and get a different views and perspectives. So this is their view of the trends in education. So I thought it was a fantastic area to speak about. And again, it goes back to that whole digital responsibility, that digital competency, the learning that the parents want the schools to help students to have healthy relationships with technology and to be safe and confident and exploring the digital world. We don't want our kids to be afraid of using technology. And sometimes we are negative about technology, saying this, bad actors out there all the time. But there's a lot of good things, and we need to look at those good things, and we need to promote those good things out there. Computational thinking, parents and teachers want students to develop problem solving alongside digital skills, so they will be better prepared for future jobs. Collaborating, innovation is another one. That innovation is for both sides, for the school system, for the teachers, using better tools to teach our kids. There's the life skills and workforce preparation, student-led learning, connecting guardians and schools. Again, that goes back to that whole community approach. Guardians and parents want to be more involved in their child's education, and technology is being used as a tool to connect with the teachers and so forth. So again, the importance of us understanding what digital competencies are there. And lastly, we see the emerging technologies. And schools are incorporating emerging technologies into the classroom. So we can move to the next slide, which is the last slide, and that talks a bit more about emerging technologies. And this different from perspective of how we can teach students, how teachers can perform better, can be more efficient at teaching students, doing their job. How the government can help the education systems around different geographies using technology. So there's different. There's 6 of them here. Learning gamified, and the use of AI is becoming very, 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 very prominent in a few geographies. There's e-learning. Obviously, this learning has been there for a while. There is the VR and AR-based learning, which is virtual reality, augmented reality, which, think of Pokemon, but in the context of education, the Pokemon game, that is. So that's an augmented reality type of approach, but you can physically see, or you could interpret a lot of abstract teaching in an interesting way when you start using these devices and so forth. There is also AI-enabled education. And to this, I would add a couple extra things there, which I'm heavily involved myself. It's probably a bit early in the phase, but I think it's going to have a massive impact in the world. And that's to do with blockchain and the use of blockchain, and how blockchain can help us, with credentials and with getting our degrees on the blockchain, so we don't have to carry a piece of paper anywhere in the world. And everything is basically digitized. We can go anywhere in the world, and we can transfer across, and it's verifiable. It cannot be play about with the documentation that if you want to transfer it from one country to another. And also there's another trend coming up called the decentralized type of education and decentralized autonomous organizations, which are called DAOs. And again, another area that I'm heavily involved with. And I see DAOs, now we're kind of using DAOs in a more financial services type of space to some extent. And it's kind of, I see that growth in education to some extent. And what a DAO does is basically just bring the whole community together and for one purpose or one cause. And using DAOs and using blockchain technology, we're looking, for example, from the perspective of helping finance education to for students that come from developing countries, new ways of funding education for students that would like to advance their degrees from in a different country, but they're not able to, for whatever reason, they don't have access to credit or something like that. But blockchain could enable those things. Again, that's an interesting area that we can explore a bit later in other type of forum that we can talk about. But so this is more or less some about ideas of what the technology is impacting the education, how digital competencies, how important they are for us to acquire, to know, and to develop them and to promote them with our kids. And I hope this gives you a bit of an overview of that. And if there is any questions, just at the end of the slide, I have my email address there. Please send me some questions, and I'll be glad to answer them back. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Harold Lucero. What a wonderful speech from you. Before that, could you please turn on your camera, Mr. Harold?
Oh, I thought I had it on. Sorry. It said that it's on. I'm not sure what's happening. Apologies.
Okay, maybe you could go to settings and...
Okay, maybe change it now. Is that better?
Yep, you're on.
Yeah, okay, fantastic. Sorry, yeah.
Yes.
I think
Everybody wants to see you. What an impressive, talented man with a lot of things to do with 3 boys.
Yeah.
So,
3 boys.
Yep. So thank you for bringing the digital competencies topic for today's event. I think some of us still questioning what was it, but you have explained that for us today. I think the main is how we can utilize the technology to support our self-development, like you said before, researching information or creating the content, and how to do with the communication. Like this is the very difficult era, like we are in the pandemic situation before, and so we have to shift our offline activity to online activity, and here it is the challenge how to perform efficiently, right?
Yeah. Well, it is that, and it's also that we are living in a digital world now, right? We cannot get away from it. We're moving more and more digital, right? You've heard the word metaverse out there, right? Facebook's changed the name to Meta. The metaverse is a whole new world, right? And I see the metaverse again, something like schools are going to be set up in the metaverse. Students are going to attend in the metaverse and learn through that without having to go to a physical building somewhere in a city, right? It actually works. When you go in, you can do banking through it. You can send money from point A to point B without using the blockchain. I mean, by the way, metaverse is actually based on the blockchain. So that's it's what is called Web3. Or if you look at the internet, think of the internet as Internet 1, Internet 2, and Internet 3. Internet 2 is what we have now, where we all know it. We know Google, we know Facebook. That's Internet 2. Internet 3 is this whole new world. It's called Web3. And that's where we're moving towards. And it is just going to have an impact on our lives. And we have to learn how to use computers. We need to learn how to manage data, how to interpret data. We're going to be connecting with people online all the time. And just like, you go out in the street now in Sydney, in the bad area of Sydney, and you have to know where you're walking, with who you're walking, what time you're walking. you don't want to go into the wrong spot, right? So you have to use your common sense. Equally in the cyberspace, it's exactly the same way, but you have to learn those skill sets to navigate through that. So yes,
absolutely. Yes, this is digital world today. Thank you so much, Mr. Harold Lucero, for your time being presenting in this event today. I hope you have a great day back there in Sydney.
thank you for that, and congratulations to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now let's move to the next agenda. It is the opening speech from Ms. Farhanisa Nasution as the project chairwoman of Ad Heroes Forum Asia. To Ms. Farhanisa Nasution, the screen is yours.